Ambassador James stood in front of the massive crystal doors of the Galactic Council chambers. His gray eyes reflected the shimmering light of the three suns outside the orbital station. After 50 years of human presence in these halls, this would be the last time any human would walk through these doors. The council chamber buzzed with the usual noise of 200 alien species discussing matters of galactic importance. As James entered, several representatives turned to look at him. Some with their multiple eyes, others with sensory organs humans couldn't even comprehend. The human section of the chamber had been empty for weeks now, ever since Earth began its quiet withdrawal. "The human ambassador wishes to address the council," announced the speaker, a tall blue-skinned being whose species had led the council for the past 3 centuries. James walked to the central platform. His steps echoed through the suddenly quiet chamber. He could feel the smugness radiating from several council members, particularly the Bright Empire's representative. Their attacks on human colonies had gone unpunished just last month, hidden behind careful diplomatic words and false promises. "Honorable Council," James began, his voice steady and calm. "For 50 years, humanity has played by your rules. We joined your council with hope and optimism. We believed in the promise of unity among the stars." He paused, looking around the chamber. Some of the older members shifted uncomfortably, perhaps remembering how they had laughed when Earth first requested membership. In these 50 years, 17 human colonies have been raided, 5 trading posts destroyed, 2 million lives lost to pirates that somehow always knew our shipping routes. And yet, when we brought evidence to this council, we were told to be patient, to understand the complexities of galactic politics. The Bright Empire's representative stood up, their crystalline form glittering. "If the human ambassador is suggesting—" "I am not suggesting anything," James cut in. "I am simply stating facts. Facts that are recorded in these very chambers. We tried diplomacy. We tried trade. We tried cultural exchange. We even tried being the galaxy's punching bag, thinking it would earn us respect." The chamber erupted in outraged voices. The speaker called for order, their blue skin turning a darker shade with effort. James continued once the noise died down. "Humanity has submitted 3,422 proposals to this council. Every single one was rejected or modified until it became meaningless. Today, I submit nothing. Instead, I bring you a message." He pulled out a small device from his pocket. With a simple press, it projected the Earth government's seal above the platform. "As of this moment, Earth and all human colonies withdraw from the Galactic Council. All treaties are hereby suspended. All diplomatic relations are terminated. All trade agreements are canceled." The chamber exploded into chaos. Several representatives jumped to their feet. Others began shouting in their native languages. "You can't do this," the speaker shouted over the noise. "The consequences. The consequences were calculated long ago," James replied, his voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. "We tried it your way for 50 years. Now we'll do it our way." He turned and walked toward the exit, ignoring the growing storm of voices behind him. As he reached the doors, he stopped and looked back one final time. "A piece of advice," he said, his voice carrying across the chamber. "The next time you see humans, it won't be diplomats you're dealing with." The crystal doors closed behind him with a final, resonating thud. As James walked down the corridor toward his ship, he allowed himself a small smile. They still didn't understand. They thought this was a desperate move by a frustrated species. They had no idea that humanity had been preparing for this day for 50 years. While they mocked human diplomats in the council, they never questioned why Earth kept sending ships into unexplored space. While they laughed at human technology, they never wondered about the massive resources Earth was mining. While they dismissed humans as primitive, they never asked why such a weak species seemed so calm in the face of constant humiliation. They would understand soon enough. The Council's central communications hub was normally a quiet place. Banks of quantum computers processed millions of transmissions across the galaxy every second. maintaining the delicate web of diplomacy that held civilization together. But today, something was wrong. Officer Mark, the lead technician on duty, noticed it first. The steady stream of data from Earth sector had stopped. Not slowed, not flickered, just stopped. "Run a diagnostic on Section 7, he ordered his assistant, a green-skinned being with multiple arms. "Earth's gone dark." Before his assistant could respond, more alerts started flashing across the screens. One by one, human colonies across 20 different systems went silent. No distress signals, no warning messages, just complete silence. "It's impossible," Mark muttered, his fingers dancing across the control panel. "They can't all fail at once." The hub's doors slid open as Council security officers rushed in. Their leader, Captain Stone, marched straight to Mark's station. "Report." "We've lost all contact with Earth and its colonies," Mark explained, pointing to the rapidly darkening map. "It's like they shut everything down at once." "Check the emergency channels," Stone ordered, his face grim. "Already did. They're dark too." "Wait." Mark leaned forward, staring at a new alert. "We're picking up massive energy signatures from the abandoned Sector 44. The main screen shifted to show a region of space that had been considered worthless, too far from major trade routes, too few habitable planets. The region humanity had been relegated to during their early days in the Council. The energy readings were off the scale. "Those aren't normal signatures," Stone whispered. "Those are fleet movements. Massive ones." More alerts began flooding in. Council spy satellites around human space were going offline one by one. Long-range scanners detected unusual activity in supposedly empty systems. And then, something even more disturbing appeared. "Sir," Mark's assistant called out, all 6 hands working different controls. "We're detecting unknown structures in the outer rim." The screen showed massive constructions hidden in asteroid fields, behind gas giants, in places nobody bothered to look. Shipyards, weapon platforms, supply depots, all bearing human markings, all fully operational, and all previously undetected. "How long have these been here?" Stone demanded. "Based on the construction patterns and dust accumulation." Mark paused, double-checking his readings. "Years, possibly decades." The hub's emergency communication system suddenly crackled to life. A single message, broadcast on all frequencies, in every known language. "Attention all galactic citizens. As of today, humanity has withdrawn from the Galactic Council. Our borders are now closed. Any unauthorized entry into human space will be considered an act of war. We are not accepting communications or negotiations at this time. That is all." The message repeated once, and then stopped. The silence that followed was deafening. "Get me a line to Earth," Stone shouted. "Try the military channels, the emergency frequencies, anything." "Sir," Mark replied, his voice shaking slightly. "They're not blocking our signals. They're just not listening anymore." A junior officer burst into the hub, clutching a datapad. "Captain, intelligence reports are coming in. The humans, they've been building up their forces for years. Those trade ships they sent into unexplored space, they were mapping strategic points. Those outdated vessels they showed us, decoys, those primitive weapons they demonstrated, all for show." Stone stared at the darkened map, realization dawning on his face. "They fooled us. For 50 years, they played the part of the primitive newcomers, and we never questioned it, never looked deeper." "Sir," Mark interrupted, pointing to new energy signatures appearing on the screen. "Multiple fleets emerging from hyperspace. They're taking up defensive positions around every human world." The hub erupted into frantic activity as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. But Captain Stone stood still, watching the movements on the screen with a growing sense of dread. "We thought we were containing them," he muttered, "but they were containing us." In the darkness of space, humanity's hidden fleet continued to deploy, a silent testament to 50 years of patience and preparation. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was in chaos. Representatives from 200 species shouted over each other, their universal translators struggling to keep up with the cacophony of languages and threats. The speaker pounded their ceremonial staff against the floor, the booming echoes finally bringing some semblance of order to the chamber. "We have confirmed reports," the speaker announced, their blue skin now almost white with stress. "The humans have activated defensive systems across their territories, systems we didn't know existed." The representative from the Trade Federation, a tall insectoid being, stepped forward. "Impossible. Our intelligence services monitored every human shipyard, every factory. Every one they showed us," came a quiet voice from the back. All eyes turned to Director Wells of Galactic Intelligence, a veteran of countless hidden wars. He walked slowly to the center of the chamber, his old uniform pristine as always. "For 50 years, Wells continued, we watched their public shipyards. We monitored their official channels. We intercepted their regular communications." He paused, letting his words sink in. "But did any of you ever wonder why it was so easy?" The chamber fell silent. "We just received this from our deep space monitoring station," Wells said, activating the central hologram. The image showed a massive structure floating in space, previously hidden behind a gas giant. It was a shipyard, but unlike anything the Council had seen before. Automated construction bays stretched for kilometers. Finished warships hung in perfectly ordered rows, their hulls bearing marks of years of careful maintenance. This facility alone could produce more ships in a month than the entire Bright Empire builds in a year, Wells explained. "And we found 12 more like it. So far." The Trade Federation representatives' mandibles clicked rapidly. "But the humans showed us their shipyards. They were primitive, inefficient. They showed us what they wanted us to see," Wells corrected. "A carefully constructed image of a struggling, technologically inferior species." A hologram changed, showing a series of human ships emerging from hidden bases across their territory. Their designs were sleek, advanced, nothing like the bulky vessels humans had previously displayed. "These ships," Wells continued, "have been operational for years. Their energy signatures suggest technology we thought was theoretical. And there are thousands of them." Suddenly, every screen in the chamber lit up with the same message. It was brief, direct, and terrifying in its simplicity. "Final warning to all Council species. Human space is now closed. Our borders are marked. Cross them at your own risk. There will be no further warnings." The Trade Federation representatives' wings buzzed in agitation. "Threats. We cannot allow this. We must show them." "Show them what?" Wells interrupted. "That we underestimated them. That we fell for their act. That while we were laughing at their primitive technology, they were building an arsenal that could rival the combined forces of the Council." The speaker raised their staff again as arguments broke out. "Order. We must discuss this rationally. Surely the humans can be reasoned with." "They spent 50 years being reasonable," Wells replied. "They filed complaints through proper channels. They'd followed our rules. They endured our mockery. And all that time, they were preparing. This isn't a negotiating tactic. This is the end result of 50 years of patience." The chamber erupted into arguments again, but Wells noticed something interesting. The representatives of the smaller, newer species, the ones who had also faced Council discrimination, were quietly watching with what looked almost like satisfaction. "Director Wells," the speaker called out, "what do you recommend?" Wells looked around the chamber, at the faces of those who had dismissed humanity for so long. "I recommend we pray they're more forgiving than we were." As if in response, the stars outside the chamber windows seemed to flicker as hundreds of human ships moved into defensive formations, their advanced stealth systems barely visible to the naked eye. The message was clear. The time for diplomacy was over. The Galactic Investigation Team's shuttle approached what appeared to be an empty sector of space. Commander Allen of the Bright Empire led the mission, his crystalline form reflecting the starlight as he studied the readings. "Nothing here," he declared with satisfaction. "Just another human bluff." His words cut off as the shuttle's sensors suddenly screamed warnings. The empty space in front of them flickered, and a massive installation materialized. The stealth field that had hidden it for decades finally deactivated. "By the ancient stars," whispered his science officer. "It's huge." The structure stretched for hundreds of kilometers. Multiple rings rotated around a central core, each one housing what appeared to be different manufacturing facilities. Automated drones moved between the sections, carrying materials and completed components. "This is just one of their hidden facilities," the science officer reported, checking the incoming data. "Based on the energy readings, it's been operational for at least 40 years. Commander Allen's crystalline surface rippled with disbelief. "Impossible. We monitored all their construction projects." "No," the science officer corrected. "We monitored what they wanted us to see. Look at this." The main screen displayed a comparison between the primitive factories humans had shown the Council and this hidden marvel. The difference was staggering. The public facilities were decoys, the science officer explained. Simple operations meant to reinforce our belief in human technological inferiority. But this is beyond anything we have. More stealth fields deactivated as they watched, revealing a network of installations, shipyards, research facilities, defensive platforms, all interconnected, all highly advanced. "Sir," the pilot called out, "we're receiving transmission from the facility." A holographic image appeared, showing an empty command center. The message was automated. "You have entered restricted human space. This is your only warning. These facilities are fully automated and will defend themselves. Turn back immediately." Commander Allen's surface crystallized with anger. They dare tow. A small object detached from the facility and moved toward them with impossible speed. Before anyone could react, it stopped a few meters from their shuttle. A scan beam swept over their vessel. "Bright Empire vessel identified." The automated voice announced, "Your species has committed 3 documented attacks on human colonies, initiating appropriate response protocol." The small object split into dozens of smaller drones. They surrounded the shuttle, weapons primed but not firing. "This is an escort formation," the voice continued. "You will be guided back to Council space. Deviation from the assigned course will be considered hostile action." Commander Allen wanted to protest, to demand answers, but the cold efficiency of the automated system made it clear that discussion was pointless. This wasn't a show of force. It was simply how things would be from now on. As their shuttle was escorted away, they passed more deactivating stealth fields. Each revelation showed more of humanity's true infrastructure. Mining operations in asteroid fields that had been declared worthless. Research stations hidden in nebulae. Defensive networks that could lock down entire sectors. "Sir," the science officer said quietly, "I've analyzed the technology levels we're seeing. These facilities, they're not just advanced. They're beyond theoretical. The humans didn't just catch up to us. They surpassed us decades ago." Commander Allen watched as another automated defense platform emerged from stealth. "Why reveal all this now? Why show us?" "Because it doesn't matter anymore," the science officer replied. "They don't care if we see it now. These facilities have been completed for years. The infrastructure is in place. The weapons are deployed. They're not showing us their capabilities as a threat. They're showing us that any resistance would be pointless." The shuttle continued its escorted journey back to Council space, leaving behind the revealed marvels of human engineering. The message was clear. Humanity hadn't just been preparing for independence. They had built an entirely self-sufficient civilization right under the Council's nose. And now it was too late to do anything about it. On the edge of disputed space, near the Bright Empire's border, a single human ship appeared. The vessel was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Smooth, dark, and radiating power that made nearby sensors malfunction. Admiral Brown of the Bright Empire's Third Fleet watched the intruder from his command ship. His crystalline form sparkled with barely contained rage. "One ship," he scoffed. "They send one ship to challenge the might of the Third Fleet." His fleet of 200 warships moved into attack formation. The standard response to border violations was overwhelming force, and the admiral had built his career on such displays of power. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the human vessel is broadcasting." "Put it through," the admiral ordered, expecting pleas or threats. Instead, a calm voice filled the command deck. "This is Captain Walker of the Earth Ship Reminder. We are here to demonstrate why our borders are now closed. You may fire when ready." The admiral's crystalline surface rippled with amusement. "They want a demonstration. Very well. All ships, open fire." 200 ships unleashed their weapons. Energy beams and plasma torpedoes streaked across space, enough firepower to reduce a small moon to debris. The admiral watched with satisfaction as the barrage approached the lone human vessel. Then everything changed. The human ship's surface rippled. The weapons fire simply vanished. Not deflected, not absorbed, just ceased to exist. "Impossible," the admiral whispered. "No shield technology can." "Phase negation field," Captain Walker's voice explained casually. "We developed it 30 years ago. Your weapons are based on energy and matter interaction. We simply removed the interaction." Before the admiral could respond, his tactical officer shouted, "Sir, we're getting strange readings from." Small points of light appeared around each Bright Empire ship. They looked like stars, but stars didn't move, and they certainly didn't move in perfect formation. "Microdrones," Walker explained. "About 1 million of them. Each one carries what you call the singularity lance. Extremely precise, extremely powerful. To demonstrate, one drone fired. A pencil-thin beam of light touched the admiral's flagship. A perfect circle, 1 centimeter wide, appeared in the hull. Through the hole, the admiral could see straight through every deck of his mighty vessel. "That was at 1% power," Walker continued. "Would you like to see full power?" The admiral's tactical officer was practically vibrating with fear. "Sir, each drone is targeting a critical system on every ship in the fleet. One shot." "This is just one of our defensive systems," Walker said. "One ship, one simple demonstration. Now, imagine what our full fleet could do. Imagine what other technologies we developed while pretending to be primitive." The admiral's surface had lost all its sparkle. "What do you want?" "Want? Nothing. This isn't a negotiation. This is education. You will return to your territory. You will report what you've seen. And you will understand that the time of underestimating humanity is over." The microdrones vanished as quickly as they had appeared. The human ship began to turn away, its mysterious drive leaving no energy signature. "One last thing," Walker added. "That hole in your ship. The repair bill will be sent to the council. Consider it the first payment for 50 years of diplomatic education." The ship vanished, leaving the stunned fleet staring at the perfectly circular hole in their flagship. The admiral looked through it, seeing the stars beyond, understanding exactly what had just happened. They hadn't just been defeated. They had been schooled. Back in council space, as news of the demonstration spread, the true panic began. If one human ship could neutralize an entire fleet, what could their full forces do? And more importantly, what other surprises had humanity kept hidden during their long decades of patient preparation? The age of underestimating humans was indeed over. The galaxy was about to learn just how costly that mistake had been. The private chamber of the Galactic Council's inner circle had never seen such frantic activity. Representatives from the most powerful species paced, argued, and occasionally threatened each other as reports continued to flood in. The Bright Empire's entire Third Fleet, neutralized by a single ship. The Trade Federation's representative slammed his mandibles against the table. "We must form an alliance. Strike before they. Strike where? interrupted Leader Gray of the Defense Council. Every time we send scouts near their territory, we discover more hidden installations, more fleets, more weapons we didn't know existed. The room's main display showed the latest intelligence, massive human fleet movements, yet always just inside their borders. Not threatening, but impossible to ignore. What about our allies in the outer systems? Someone suggested. Leader Gray laughed bitterly. Haven't you heard? The Rim Worlds Alliance, the mining consortium, even the deep space clans. They've all signed individual treaties with Earth. Impossible. The Bright Empire's crystal form representative sparkled with outrage. Those primitives have been quietly building relationships for decades. Gray cut in. All those species we ignored or looked down upon. Humanity has been trading with them, helping them develop. They're not our allies anymore. New alerts flashed across the screens. More systems declaring neutrality. More trade agreements being canceled. The carefully built network of council influence was unraveling hour by hour. We could still overwhelm them with numbers, the Trade Federation insisted. If we combine all our fleets and risk them all being defeated like the Third Fleet. Gray shook his head. Besides, look at this. He brought up a new display, showing economic data. As the information scrolled past, the room grew quieter. For 50 years, Gray explained, we thought we were containing human expansion, limiting their trade, keeping them dependent on council markets. But look at these numbers. Their real economy, the one they kept hidden, is larger than our top 3 systems combined. How? Someone whispered. Because we saw what they wanted us to see. Those primitive trading ships. Cover for their real fleet movements. Those basic resources they were mining. Raw materials for advanced manufacturing we never detected. Those simple colonies. Hidden industrial powerhouses. Another alert flashed. The representative from the Sciences Guild rushed in, waving a datapad. We've decoded some of their technical databases, he announced breathlessly. The technology they've been hiding. It's beyond anything we have. They weren't stuck at our level. They surpassed us decades ago and kept advancing. The room erupted in arguments again, but Gray noticed something interesting. The younger representatives, those who had argued for better treatment of humanity, were quietly sending messages back to their governments, making their own plans. We must do something. The Trade Federation insisted. We already did something, Gray replied quietly. For 50 years, we did exactly what humanity needed us to do. We underestimated them. We mocked them. We united them against a common enemy, us. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. So what do we do now? Someone finally asked. Before Gray could answer, all screens in the room activated simultaneously. A simple message appeared. The human delegation will receive individual representatives tomorrow. Come prepared to discuss new terms. Your current economic and military status will determine your priority in negotiations. Choose your representatives wisely. The message disappeared, leaving the room in stunned silence. They're not even pretending to treat us as equals anymore. The Trade Federation representative whispered. Why should they? Gray asked. We spent 50 years proving we didn't deserve it. As the inner circle broke into smaller groups, frantically planning their approaches to the upcoming negotiations, Gray watched the continuing display of human fleet movements. Each formation was perfect, each position carefully chosen. 50 years of preparation, now revealed in all its overwhelming complexity. The galaxy was changing, and the Council had no choice but to change with it. 1 year after humanity's revelation, the old Council chamber looked very different. Gone were the elaborate decorations that had symbolized ancient power. Gone were the hierarchical seating arrangements that had placed older species above newer ones. The new chamber was simpler, more practical, and most importantly, equal. Ambassador Tom stood at the main entrance, watching representatives file in for the first meeting of the new Galactic Assembly. Each species now had the same size seat, The same voting power, the same right to speak. "Quite a change," said Director Wells, appearing beside him. The old intelligence chief now served as an advisor to the Assembly's Security Council. "They're adapting better than expected," Tom observed, watching former council powers sit alongside species they once dismissed. The main display activated, showing the current state of galactic affairs. Trade routes had been redrawn, borders reestablished, and economies restructured. But most notably, the galaxy was at peace. "Amazing what happens when everyone knows they can't bully their neighbors anymore," Wells remarked. Human ships patrolled key trade routes, their advanced technology ensuring peace not through threat, but through the simple impossibility of successful aggression. The microdrones demonstrated at the Third Fleet incident now protected merchant ships of all species. "Report from the industrial sector," an aide announced, handing Tom a datapad. "The sharing of basic human technology has increased production efficiency across all participating systems by 300%. Tom nodded. It had been a calculated decision. Release enough technology to improve lives across the galaxy, but keep the most advanced systems as a safeguard. Trust, but verify. The chamber filled quickly. Representatives who once sneered at each other now engaged in civil discussion. The Bright Empire's delegation sat next to representatives from their former colonies, actually listening to their concerns. "Time to begin," Tom said, moving to the central platform. The chamber quieted immediately. "1 year ago," he began, "humanity revealed its true capabilities. We ended an era of diplomacy that wasn't working and forced a change none of you wanted. Today, we begin a new era." He gestured to the screens showing trade data, defense reports, and economic indicators, all pointing upward. The galaxy is prospering. Free trade, protected by human patrols. Open borders, secured by human technology. Equal representation, guaranteed by human oversight. Some call this human dominance. We call it human responsibility. The chamber remained silent, but it wasn't the fearful silence of the past. It was the silence of acceptance, of understanding. "We hid our strength for 50 years, Tom continued. "We watched, we learned, and yes, we planned. Not for conquest, but for change. The old council failed because it was built on power. The new assembly succeeds because it's built on equality." He touched a control, and the ceiling became transparent, showing the stars above. Human ships were visible in high orbit, their advanced forms no longer hidden. "Look around you," Tom said. "Former enemies now trade partners. Former victims now equals. This is what we worked 50 years to achieve. Not through conquest, but through preparation. Not through war, but through the credible promise of consequences." He paused, allowing his words to sink in. The galaxy once laughed at humanity's patience. Now they understand it. We didn't want to rule a galaxy. We wanted to fix it. And with your cooperation, we have. The chamber erupted in applause, genuine applause, not the fearful kind that had echoed in the old council. As Tom stepped down from the platform, Wells met him with a smile. 50 years of hiding, planning, and building, the old intelligence chief mused, all to create peace through strength. "The best victory," Tom replied, watching the representatives begin their first true equal session, "is the one where everyone wins in the end." Above them, human ships continued their eternal patrol, ensuring that the new galactic order would endure. Not through fear or dominance, but through the simple truth that humanity had proven. True power isn't about controlling others. It's about being strong enough to ensure that no one can control anyone else. The galaxy had learned its lesson, and peace reigned among the stars.